right, welcome to the Press Box. I'm Greg Waddell. Each and every week I'll be joined by Ricky Martin and Kyle Rogers, who will discuss a series of topics and headlines from the wild world of sports. This week, Andre Agassi released excerpts from his new book, Open, in which the former tennis star openly admits some personal information about his life. Thoughts?
Well, I will say this explains a lot of why Andre Agassi's always been one of the more flamboyant athletes in our world. I'm really not upset about this for some reason. The crystal meth addiction, that's an awful thing, and you don't want to see anybody go through that. But that doesn't bother me. The part of the story that bothers me the most is the fact that in 1997, after he failed a drug test, he lied about it. And that's the part that I'm having the most trouble with understanding. But he's been tormented. You know, he says in excerpts from this book that he hated his father, he secretly hated tennis, and you can tell he's a tormented soul, and I think that really this has brought him a lot of peace and solace knowing that it's out in the open now. Everything's in the open. And I mean, like going back to his antics, things like that, the hair, I know that's something that you probably want to talk about. I know you're pretty angry about that, aren't you?
Yeah, and I mean, like, look, everybody blames things on their dads and stuff like that. I mean, if they wanted to take drugs, they're going to take drugs, and everybody's taking drugs nowadays. But the fact that he faked his hair, I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going bald, be proud of it. Don't. And if he did loosen his hair, a little more subtle haircut, not like a mohawk or a mullet. That's what gets me about this whole story. Forget meth, I don't care.
The good thing is, though, one positive that comes out of this story is that all the money that Andre Agassi's donated from his tennis winnings has gone to charity, things like that. And I think that's what we need to really celebrate in this story and not so much the negative bad things.
Earlier this week, the St. Louis Cardinals announced that former slugger Mark McGwire would return to the bench as the team's new hitting coach. The last time we saw McGwire, he was dancing around questions at the congressional hearing on steroids. Thoughts?
Well, I'm not here to talk about the past. Well, actually I am, because that's pretty much what this whole story is about. Mark McGwire is probably one of my favorite players at the time. He kind of dwindled towards the end of his career, and I mean, you can blame it on steroids. The fact is, he's never tested positive. He's never come out and said that he did it. It's just the fact that he got big towards the end of his career. He had a lot of success. People were going to think that he did it. I remember being in my living room with my dad watching the 60-second home run in 1998 go over the fence. A special time as a Cardinals fan. I was a very big fan of his, a very big fan of LaRussa's. He's a good hitter. You know, steroids doesn't teach you hand-eye coordination. It doesn't teach you, what pitch the pitcher's going to pitch next. It maybe gives you a little more power, but the fact is he was hitting home runs before he even got big. He had like 50 home runs in his rookie season and a few seasons after that.
I think this is a sort of an apology to the Cardinals for sort of shunning him after the steroid allegations, things like that. I think they're bringing him back in slow, and I think this is great for his image. And I think this is really going to bring him back to the forefront, get him back into the Hall of Fame talk, because I know he was already eligible 2 years ago. And the committee's still holding some type of grudge, and I feel like this is his way of edging himself back into baseball and really making amends for the mistakes that he's made in the past, or the alleged mistakes that he's made in the past.
And that might be his way of doing it, because, I mean, it looked to me like he was content living in Arizona playing golf all the time, not talking to media, but now he decides that he's going to go with a contender. He's, going to be the actual hitting coach. He's going to be there the whole time, not just during spring training. He's going to be in uniform in the dugout. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure he likes teaching hitting, but maybe there's a little agenda there.
I mean, the Cardinals have phenomenal young hitters, so I think that bringing in a slugger like that can only improve their hitting.
College basketball took one step closer to tip-off earlier this week as ESPN and USA Today released the top 25 preseason coaches poll. Did they get it right?
The rankings surprised me a little bit. Kansas on top, that didn't surprise me. Michigan State number 2. Once again, a solid top 3 team. Texas at number 3, and then North Carolina, who's supposed to be in a rebuilding year. I find that very hard to believe. And Kentucky fell to 5th. I think that's a little low. I would have Kansas, Michigan State, then Kentucky, then Texas, and maybe Villanova, North Carolina. Just looking over the top 25, though, two Big 12 teams in the top 3. That's Kansas and Texas, and then there's several Big 10 teams in here, which I think is going to be the really surprise conference this year. The ACC is going to be a little bit down. They still have North Carolina, Duke, Georgia Tech. So the ACC is going to be up in the air. No one knows. The Big East is always going to be strong. But the Big 10 is the really surprise for me. Michigan State at 2, Purdue at 7, Michigan cracks the top 15. Minnesota at 18. So I really think the Big Ten is going to be the conference this year that people are going to look to and be very surprised. Of course, one negative of the Big Ten is they play very slow basketball. Final score is 38-31. So that's going to turn a lot of people off. But I like the Big Ten and the Big 12's chances of winning the national championship this year.
Well, I think jumps out to me about this list is you look at the top 5. You look over the past 20 years, you got names like Kansas, Kentucky, North Carolina, Michigan State. They've been there. They have, very high rankings. They have a big following, and I think that's going to add a lot of excitement to the season. North Carolina, maybe chalk that up to ACC bias within the media, but other than that, maybe Kentucky should have slid up one higher. But I mean, there's so much uncertainty. I mean, they weren't even ranked last year. I mean, you have this good recruiting class coming in, but I think that's why they're kind of hesitant to put them really far up there, is because you get the little hesitancy, but you don't know what's going to come up.
Yeah. Thank you guys for tuning in. Check back each and every Friday, and we'll have a new segment for you. Thank you very much.